The ninth and newest expansion for Blizzard's digital card game Hearthstone is finally out, and it features some really great new additions. The Boomsday Project introduces players to 135 new cards to collect, from new legendary spells to fantastically fun minions to cards that may revolutionize some of the game's mechanics. And many critics and players alike are calling the Boomsday Project the most exciting expansion the game has had yet. So today we're taking a look at the best new cards from the expansion with our list of the top 10 cards from the Boomsday Project. Starting us off in at number 10, Whizbang the Wonderful. Whizbang the Wonderful is a great card for those new to Hearthstone, or those with a smaller collection of cards. Now Whizbang gives you a random deck from the 18 deck recipes, making him the only card that you need to put into your deck, replacing your hero and renaming your deck as Whizbang is Wonderful. While many people feel that the card doesn't have much of a competitive aspect since most deck recipes do not compare to meta decks, Whizbang isn't really for that. It's a card that lets newer players enjoy playing with cards that have more substance than basic or classic commons that they may have just opened, giving them access to cards that they normally wouldn't have access to otherwise. Up next at 9, Test Subject. Test Subject is a 1-mana rare priest minion card that has a great death rattle mechanic. Return any spells you cast on this minion to your hand. It's a card that requires patience. At first, he's not all that great, and you'll probably want to put him on the board with a small buff to begin with. If your opponent answers it, you can get into a cycle with Test Subject that's fairly advantageous. If Test Subject stays on the board, you can continue using additional buffs. The downside is that this card is pretty weak up against silence cards and polymorph. And at number 8, Security Rover. Security Rover may appear to be awful at first glance. 6 mana 2/5 ain't great, and it could put you in a pretty precarious position. But if you stick with it and manage to trigger it 3 times or more, despite being super difficult, Security Rover can really be beneficial. There's a couple of ways to make it work though, like if you have a card like Dr. Boom Mad Genius on your board already, more on him later, or if you have any cheap magnetic minion to give Security Rover more value. It's a risky move, but if played successfully, will pay off. And at 7, Stargazer Luna. Luna is a legendary mage minion. Her mechanic allows you to draw cards by playing the rightmost card in your hand, which can open up a whole lot of options in terms of strategy. You're essentially playing your top deck. Why is this good? Well, if you're playing Face Mage, every top deck is a good top deck, so you're going to be drawing a lot of cards. Previously, Face Mage had a slight issue with its draw power, and this card fixes all of that, and pretty much makes everyone scared to come up against it. If it wasn't already obvious, it's worth noting that Luna doesn't really fit well into a slower deck, and she fits well into a deck that is a faster, aggressive version of Mage, one that needs a lot of cycle to get through cards at a rapid pace. And at 6, Xeric Master Cloner. Xeric is a minion with a very intriguing mechanic. If you've cast any spells on this minion, it must be resummoned. This death rattle mechanic is one of the best ones out there. You can essentially keep bringing Xeric back over and over again, but the flip side of that is that it's tricky to make happen. Unless a spell is cast on it, the card is pretty much useless. Another criticism of the card is that Priest doesn't have enough cheap buffs to cast on Xeric, so in other words, if you have a cheap way to buff it, Xeric is super worthwhile, and can be a very powerful asset to your deck. And at number 5, Omega Assembly. Omega Assembly is a 1-mana card, but you're going to want to hold on to it until you have 10 mana in order to make the most of it. If you combine the card with new warrior cards that allow you to cheat minions into play or give mechs additional abilities, Omega Assembly can be flat out deadly, and secure you many a win. So we highly suggest using this card to make your warrior deck the best it can be. Need a mech in the early game? It's got you covered. Make it to 10 mana? Then you've got 3 mechs for the price of 1. This card is just flat out good, no matter what point in the game that you play it. You always get value. And at 4, Mecha'thun. Mecha'thun is another death rattle card. If you have no cards in your deck, hand, and battlefield, it allows you to destroy the enemy hero. It's a really experimental card, and while some players don't consider it to be all that great, it sure makes for a way to mess up the game's dynamics, since it requires you to literally have nothing. It's a card that you've really got to plan to use ahead of time. However, if you build your deck just right, it doesn't matter how well your opponent is doing. You can win the game instantly in one swift turn, and that's definitely not something to take lightly. And at 3, Flabadinius Floop. Floop is a really effective card, but it's also a card that you'll probably really dislike after having it continuously used against you. It makes sure that if you put a big minion on the board, you don't have to worry about it getting removed before actually getting something out of it. Ever have that problem where you need 2 of the same card and you draw one but can't draw another? Well, this fellow makes it a lot easier for you to pull off that combo. His ability carries over to the next turn as well, so you can play a high mana card and, say if it gets taken out, well, hey, you still have him again on the next turn. And at number 2, Ziliax. Ziliax is an all-class legendary. It's been described as being like a Chillblade champion on steroids, and it's quite flexible. If you put Ziliax on various mechs, you'll get a lot of value out of the card, and be likely to stabilize or close your game with it. You can play it in Constructed, with it being able to hold its own as a standalone card and in Magnetize. It has lifesteal and rush mechanics, which is a powerful combination since you can immediately heal and also leave a minion that can heal you further on the board. Plus, worth noting that in the wild format, the card allows you to pull off some really crazy combos. And finally, in at number 1, Dr. Boom Mad Genius. Dr. Boom's battle cry gives your mechs rush for the rest of the game. Oh, the potential that has. It's incredibly powerful, and some players even think it's broken because of it. He's a hero card that's OP as hell, just like many of the other hero cards that we've seen in the past. First and foremost, he's 7 mana, which means you'll probably see him a lot earlier in the game than you'd want to. Secondly, he gives you 6 new hero powers. And hey, 6 randomly generated hero powers? What happens if you get a bad one? Well, funny enough, there are no bad ones. You either win more or you win slightly a little less. And with new magnetic cards, it just adds more to your deck. Fun times for all. Alright, there we have it, friends. Which of these cards are your favorites? Are there other cards from the Boomsday project that you adore that you think should have made our list? Let us know in those comments below. If you dug this video, show us some love. Hit that like button. And if you want more gaming lists, news, or update videos, be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Gaming. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you all in the next video.